I'm always tired.
Guys, just a heads up. I got like 2.5 hours of sleep last night. I've been up for 14 hours. You might want to keep that in mind.
That was yesterday for me.
Heads up.
We got everybody, right?
Yep, we're
Wow.
just starting.
Your round is actually starting. That's a good thing.
Crazy.
Hit the start round
Hey,
button.
where's the,
please.
where's the plaque?
I'll ask.
Loser gets nothing.
Gets a bid.
Set bids, there you go.
I mean,
The
that's
winner
not
got bid
unique.
too, but like, yeah, I'll take it.
Well, I think
Okay.
that's started yet, you don't need to use words like that.
He told me he doesn't have anything to do with that, but he'll figure it out.
Okay. Everyone ready?
Wait, I'm bad.
What?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, go for it.
I value morality, the standards maximizing expected well-being. The state doesn't have the reflexive capacity of an individual, so it can't be valued intrinsically good and 90. There's no special life, public officials, those made that choice on our histories, right issues, individuals have information of their own circumstances, public officials are totally informationally fixed, their choice will have an individual what they typically know average scenarios, that is enough to use utilitarian calculus, and there's no intent for said distinction, always to justification of specificity. Ours are state-specific, which is the after. Enoch 7. How do you have the foreseeing distinction seems to be evaded responsibility in making policy decisions, global perception must be undertaken, perhaps an individual doctrines and escape or scare strong about thinking about tomorrow when it's staying. Committee tries to allocate scare strokes and behind the intended foreseen distinction, arguing that if it allows today's patient the death of tomorrow's is foreseen states and no special relation to pursuits, personal interests, or autonomous life, so there's no reason to restrict the responsibility of states. And the advantage is military readiness. Studies prove personnel and budgetary inflexibility generates a readiness death spiral that risks missile, cyber, and terrorist attacks and an imminent collapse in air supremacy and disaster response. A restructuring of military personnel is vital. Panetta et al. 17. Top demonstrated sound alarm with the current state of the military readiness. Readiness levels are impacted by military personnel. Low readiness is low morale. Falling readiness negatively impact recruiting and retention, which increase the geostrategic risk facing the nation. Personnel reforms are the most important opportunity to improve long-term readiness. If not fully prepared to face the rest of the no amount of money or other incentive will be enough to recruit and retain the military to deter and defeat missile, cyber, and terrorist attack while mitigating the effects of attacks and natural disasters. Air dominance has been enabled by the readiness of pilots who are experienced in military. The Air Force could be short of 1,500 pilots. Today's readiness shortfall is caused by 1. High off tempo, 2. Decreasing a defense budget, and 3. Inflexible personnel system. Defense leaders can improve long-term readiness through personnel. And simply the perception of a readiness decline spurs regional aggression and great power wars. Banana 2. The risk of force status it takes on advantage when involved nuclear weapons. The adversary views will take notice of that readiness that's while 1. The military is less prepared for unnecessary conflict, and 2. The risk of conflict rises low. Readiness levels were brought by the post-Vietnam transition to a volunteer military. The lack of readiness led to disastrous operations in the early 1980s. Russia and its Crimean independence from Ukraine following a period of political withdrawal from Europe. China cleared aid and China Sea over the disputed Senkaku Islands. The global security environment is most unpredictable in 40 years. To break out the readiness steps, reforms of personnel systems must be pursued. No amount of money or high-tech weaponry will be enough to maintain the U.S. military advantage for the long term. And unipolarity is on the brink. The plan is key to maintain it. Claire 17. Trump is likely to face international rights and turning into nuclear escalation. Even Trump's relation to the American forces on any threat. These sole circle pressure system with the proposed Cold War era is giving way to multipolar, fragmented world. Transitional disruptive as status quo powers resist challenge to their dominance from revisionist states. Russia, feeling threatened by the way NATO has moved close to its borders, now calling for any early use of tactical nuclear munitions to overpower stronger enemy forces. The firebreak between conventional nuclear warfare seems to be narrowing to North Korea's stepped up and developed nuclear weapons, long-range ballistic missiles it tested, and ICBM capable of delivering a nuclear warhead to the U.S. And there are 5 scenarios for conflict: North Korea, China, Russia, Iran, and ISIS. Further decline in readiness escalates them to the nuclear level. Claire 2. Trump is open to military options, rejecting the past the unpredictability of Kim Jong-un. Also, Donald Trump believes North Korea in the high alert, and China has cautious local powers over possession of violence. It has begun to convert allies military bases. Trump was prepared to use military forces in response to the Chinese building. The Chinese are unlikely to man those seconds. The only kind of signal that can carry anyway would be military action. Once conflict began, the 2 nuclear armed countries found themselves at the brink of full-scale war. Your NATO forces moved into the Baltic states until they were believed to be vulnerable to covert operations, disinformation campaigns, cyber attacks to NATO. Who represents here such Russian security and justify the buildup of the Russian forces. Trump is the promise to intensify the war against ISIS, which will require the deployment of forces. Airstrikes on ISIS held locations choose within casualties, desperate migrants, and hiding clashes. As ISIS loses territory, it will surely respond by increasing terrorist attacks. Trump could be pressured by close associates to counter Iran. This could include sanctions, right? Saudi Arabia attacks and running proxies would prompt counter moves by Tehran and escalation. Independently, air supremacy provides a terminal filter to every impact. False graph 10. The U.S. Federal long-range offensive system and the ISO tolerances will increase the vulnerability of U.S. assets, power projection capabilities, military service systems, that can offset and defend against asymmetric capabilities requiring enhanced USAF cooperation and constraints will important implications for budget and procurement programs and millions of critical systems of procurement, education, training, and retention, provide benefits of air power, except on the air, and land, maritime space and cyber domains are increasingly interdependent. And thus the plan text. The United States federal government should instate a draft lottery in which individuals are selected for compulsory military service. A lottery system is specifically key ensures the military is effective while evangelism declines. Eichenberg and Kennedy 13. The British military is dividing gap between American forces and male officers. Speak about wars and family business and making self perpetuating military class segregated from society with race, breaking from the disadvantage, reliance can breed, complicity above force. The military role has expanded beyond traditional battlefield and commanders that orchestrate nation building initiatives like infrastructure promotion, the rule of law, and women's rights. Today's wars make use of computers giving civilians the impression that the war of combat are in the past. Let's start with the draft lottery. A lottery of population rates to be drafted to introduce civic obligation. The lottery would be active in volunteer recruitment fell short on ways to select the most highly skilled Americans, providing incentive for the most privileged to pick your Congress should insist on wars we paid for in real-time levying taxes, defining special appropriation, compelling body policy to prepare the fiscal burden, and encourage citizens to consider war making the political shift they're involved in. And a draft would change the culture of our society. It would shift the priorities of wealthy and powerful people, encourage the public to make changes, and result in a more measured deployment of military force. Murphy 17. Change the organizational authorities and resources provided baseline to radical shift in American security policy and reflects a pragmatic approach to readiness. That such an exercise would be more would resonate more powerfully among our adversaries than co-op opposition will prove construction of voters who with a more personal stake are more responsible and increase our pressure in engaging constitutional forces. Let the divisions of more decisions of other application of military forces curbing and the Grenada, Iraq, and Somalia. They must present threats in the context of strategic issues to require discussions about potential confrontation must be attended by discussion of the human cost in America's preparedness. And as epistemology turns the K, when we are able to examine the issues between contemporary international relations, we are able to question various that security discourse shapes our individual attachment to politics, using the state's heuristic calls into question the very nature of control and exclusions. In 1914, resistance to governmental scripts and all into revolution is found in as well as victims using the scripts of governmental nationalities and at the same time exceed and transform governmentality as a heuristic focuses on performing a complex diagnostics and advanced advice, historically situated exploration and careful differentiation and on hybridization as a terrain for political transformation, open ways to reconsidering political agency. To clarify, I stopped at this is a naughty 14 evidence.
Is that not the last part? Is that not the last part that's supposed to be in the doc?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I gotta charge my phone. How much? Alright, 6?
Yeah.
Anyone not ready? Cool. Are there any theoretical justifications for the framework?
No.
Okay, cool. Can you explain like why Enoch like matters in like a sense that's not impact justified to like consequences?
Wait, what do you mean? Wait,
Okay, just explain what Enoch says then.
So the argument is that states can't use the intended foreseen distinction because they're unable to make the decision that we can give someone, for example, like scarce drugs to save them in the future. I.e., they don't have the ability to make that distinction because they are a state. They don't have special relationships, pursuits, personal interests, autonomous lives.
Is it based off the fact that they're collectives or like what?
Yeah, I'd say that's part of it. But part of it is that states themselves don't have personal like relationships and pursuits or interests.
Okay, but like, why is that a relevant feature?
Sorry?
Why is that a relevant feature of states that they don't have like?
Right, that means that they're unable to use they're unable to fall under the intent foresight distinction.
But why? Like, what's the warrant for that?
Because they are not individuals. They have they have no special relationships, pursuits, personal interests, autonomous lives.
Oh, okay.
That's the argument.
Okay. So it is based off the fact that they're collectives.
Sure, I'd say that's part of it, yeah.
Okay, then what's the other parts?
The other part is that the states themselves cannot engage in an individual action like the NC would potentially talk about. So like,
Why not?
So I guess part of it might be impact justified regarding the death of today's patient, the death of tomorrow is foreseen. But the other part of that is that the state themselves is not an individual. So I guess, yeah, it's two parts. So they're a collective and the impacts argument. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Why does actor specificity matter?
Because that's what the ethical debate should be about, what the USFG does, given that it's the actor of the app.
Okay,
So
if
like,
I
it
should,
doesn't matter what individuals should do if it doesn't apply to the app.
what if my ethical theory shows that there's no distinction between like obligations between other people, like between like specific actors?
But, like, I don't know why that relates to the app.
Because I'm saying like, if I win my ethical framework and my ethical framework doesn't make any sort of distinction between the actor and the government or whatever.
Right, our evidence indicates that there is a difference between the government and an individual. Like, I am fundamentally different than when Congress passes a bill.
Alright, do you care about oppression impacts?
Yeah, I'd say that is something that's bad.
To like a reduced marginal utility sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
so like, what does that mean?
Like $100 to Bill Gates means less than $100 to a family in Uganda. It's whatever.
Wait, what?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. The argument is that we increase expected well-being, so things like suffering, pain, pleasure, those are all important things under our framework.
Okay. Alright, I'll start. Right. Okay, that'll do. 206 remaining. I will send you it now.
Flashback right here. I usually hear that about 5:30 every morning.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Are you emailing it?
Quarters. Yes. I'm just dumb. I forgot what I named the file right after I named the file.
This one. It's not my line.
My advice is to do it while you know.
Alright, we good to go?
Yeah.
Wait, no.
Oh, okay. What is going? Oh.
Alright, we'll see where.
It's gonna be NCAC. I had like 216 left, right?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
206.
206. Caught myself. Well, you caught me, so. Alright, gosh. Alright, anyone not ready?
Do you want to use the stand here?
Yeah, that would be useful.
Oh, yeah.
And we're of similar heights.
Yeah. Don't forget your foot.
Okay. Force of habit. Alright, anyone not ready? I know you're already. Meta-ethics is binding. It's a condition of ethics that must be binding as its purpose to guide action. If it isn't binding, then it cannot have authority to act over us. We can opt out and constitutive solves our ability to reason. For our one, the norms of morality have special authority. They are categorically binding regardless of contingent motives, preferences, and intention. The norms of particular games, institution, and practice are only conditionally binding. They have normative force only for agents who have a good enough reason to participate in them. Unconditional odds are found in the nature of agency. A systematic failure to be guided by these requirements alone. Still, a loss of agency. There's a sense that we cannot be about agents and preempts. One, if they say that binding is important, means that we can just opt out of their framework. We have no reason to accept the strength of their argument for why it's bad. Two, binding is bad. It presumes the framework to assert its badness in the first place, which must be binding as I can opt out of that framework otherwise. And skip the next card. Sorry. The form of the species is that they're all productive to satisfy their needs. What humans form is species being or agency as they're conscious over their labor of making and creative. Wardenberg 82. Species being is free conscious activity. Animals build nests and dwellings, but animals are constrained with naturally given needs. Human beings are able to produce in accordance with their own plans, even in the absence of any physical need. A human being truly produces only in freedom from such need. Thus marks these human freedom as dependent upon our ability to produce objects according to our conscious plans. And if we prevent others from achieving their goals, they will logically have the ability to prevent our own goals from being achieved. So we should respect each other's ends. Year 99. Insofar as I represent rational determined and represent having rational and objective worth, I must represent my answer constraint that I have adopted constraints as structural possible space of choice and action. Since the end function that I'm objective, I must demand that as a constraint be I recognize as such. I cannot be indifferent to the actions of others for these I either help or hinder the pursuit of my end. All other subs are recognized and represent my end as constraining their actions just as I represent as constraining my actions. And this hijacks ends based framing as we must respect each other to ensure that they won't prevent our own ends from being achieved. And the standards consisting of species being. Impact calculus. A value impacts the alienation based on the intent of promoting alienation, not the consequences of framework. Just means-based foreseen impacts are independent of what an agent determines. So because the consequences themselves are dependent on things like external to the will, so only how we will the means to an action can be self-determined digitally, and C doesn't have a maximum to try and enforce. So even if you turn the case, you still violate the standard. Good intentions don't make it so you have the will over a bad intention, and the universal and particular or not. Oh, no, skip that card. Part two is forced labor causes alienation, and species being implies that right to labor conscious activity. They force us to become mere animals due to forcing us to labor in certain ways, violating our ability to consciously labor. Wardenberg 2. Marx holds that we are able to achieve freedom through freely chosen products. Capitalism was a system of alienated labor forces the capitalist to labor for an entire day. Human species being is not allowed to realize human freedom functions merely to keep the worker alive. The worker uses all of his or her human capabilities for labor simply in order to stay alive and to reproduce him or herself. And just back on the framework. Sorry. Creative labor is inescapable because trying to escape the ability to creatively labor is an instance of creative labor in of itself because you're setting the end of trying to escape with creative labor and pursuing that. And next, creative labor is also the largest enterprise in the fact that it is always a constituent of us, no matter what we are in society, whether we are a fireman, a teacher, or a policymaker. We always have the ability to be able to creative labor instead of pursue whatever ends that we have. You can always opt out of any sort of enterprise, but you can never opt out of what is creative labor. And onto the framing. Hijacks. One, if you're justified in alienating other people, then they're justified in alienating you, which means that you can't achieve the abstract creative end. Means that we hijack the app to evaluate actions that will maximize utility rather than utility just for ourselves. We must have creativity to pursue that. And as it doesn't bring us closer to the naturally given needs to consider others, otherwise we can opt out of it. It means that we hijack the app. And on good 90. First, policymakers abide by things like the Constitution, which means that they have side constraints that aren't exactly utilitarian, which means that they don't strictly have to use utilitarian calculus. Second, Kant can work in a state because the states are made of individuals, which means that Kantian ethics still has a bind on them. Three, even though they're in this sort of enterprise as being a policymaker, Kantian logic still applies to them. And fourth, turn aggregation as means to an end is a violation because you're using those aggregate as means to an end. This creates a contradiction because you're able to aggregate those people to the greater good, quote unquote. Fifth, no link. Policymakers, no example. Policymakers, no several empirical situation which allows them to use deontology. This means that you prefer deontology for the same reason before. And sixth, turn. Next on Enoch. First is infinite calculus. If we don't have any sort of if we don't have any foresight distinction, then we'll always be infinitely calculated what is the better solution in order for us because we'll always exclude something that we don't actually think about. And if we don't calculate to do this, then we're always going to have the intent in which that we cause somebody great harm. And this means that if we are infinitely calculating in order to see that if we're going to do something bad to someone in which we will be culpable for, then we should. And that means that we would never be able to create any policies to actually be able to solve anything. Second, this places blame on ignorant. And just because we don't know something happens doesn't mean that doesn't mean that we should be blamed for it in every single instance. Like, sure, there might be like I can't know everything in the universe right now. Like literally a lot of instances of bad things are happening, but that doesn't mean that I should be responsible for these things. And also, third, impact justified only this impact justified only matter. These arguments only matter because of consequences themselves. And fourth, collectives consent to a vote, which means that there's our unified action in which that we have an intent to actually do these things, even if they intend to vote against something, and they're so complicit in the system of voting in the first place. And also, fifth, collectives that do action have intent, because all that's required is a moral agent that sets and pursues goals. And on your and just util in general. One, this is not binding. We can always abstract away from pain and pleasure. If there's a death in the family chooses to know it even over not know it, even if there's a cause of pain to know about it, means that we can always abstract from our position as desires are utilitarians in order to be able to go through this desires, the form of the agent, which is the desire under his framework, which means that it's not something that's always binding in every scenario, which means that we can always opt out of his framework. Next, second, the agent, the consumption of the agent is limited. We are just hedonistic desires. Otherwise, we have no reason to act on the others' behalf. Either there are things other than the pleasure that we value. The truth may hurt, but we still value truth. And third, an infinite number of impacts result from any given event because the causal chains follow any initial action. Interminable utilitarianism is not a sustainable ethical theory because it requires the impossible epistemological burden of isolating and evaluating an infinite number of effects in order to render an ethical judgment, i.e. the worst of human tragedies result in an infinitely greater good at a given point in time. And on the content level, this is all consequentialist. You should not evaluate it because intents are the only thing that are internal to a will. And now to the contention level. America is known for the hub of obesity and laziness. Putting all our civilians in the military makes us a laughing stock. Having a professional military like we do in the status quo makes people where people literally train all high school and middle school is just for the chance to serve as a better perception than the melting pot of America too. A draft brings in short-term surgery and displaces those interested in a military career. Chapman 2. The government took advantage of unlimited power by underpaying servicemen, losing recruits who might have a chosen military career, raising the pay when the volunteer forces introduced and eliminated. The draft leaders have no interest in short-term soldier. A person to train only for a few months is useless by the time the compulsory volunteers are trained. Every time the muster out, the system will be rolled by constant turnover. And 3, the military conscription results in a low-quality fighting force. Drafts are disobedience and inefficiency when you force people to fight. You get what you pay for. Russell. Conscription causes draft riots, pitch battles, arranged for NYC for days. People will hang and charge damages enormous. The draft was so unpopular that garnered fewer than 50,000, less than 3% of the total force. And 4, drafts that hurt morale. Conscripts are less effective. The average contract will always cost more. 4, the last where we used the draft, we lost the use. It was internal over the draft, which stopped the effectiveness of it.
Can you email the cards you read?
Yeah, I never planned things before. Yeah.
Let's keep it.
I'm really sorry about that, actually.
That's fine.
You want the arguments against Gooden as well, and the usual generic arguments?
Flash it.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Are you emailing the cards?
Yeah, I got it. And like, there's other stuff, but I just wasn't sure if I read anything else.
so what is bindingness?
Bindingness is when it's like when a moral theory is able to tell you that you did something bad whenever you do something bad.
What?
So like, we say bindingness matters because otherwise you can opt out, which means that an ethical theory can't tell you that you're bad. Because you can always just opt out of like, why do I have to like follow this sort of morality?
But that doesn't answer my question. What is bindingness?
Bindingness is the ability to like tell all moral agents, no matter whether they want to opt out or not, that if they do a bad action, it is bad.
So your framework is just universal, is the argument.
In part, I suppose, yeah.
Okay, what is different from that?
So that would probably be the Wardenberg 2 card that talks about how it's not just a pure like Kantian framework or anything. It starts from like the Marxian conception of like labor, in which he says like we creatively labor and create the world in a way that it helps to bring about our own ends. And then he says that also alienation is something that matters under like this sort of like creative labor sense. Because
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about this first Wardenberg card. What does this have to do with productivity?
Okay, so productivity is like, and it's something that applies to all species, but it's rather something that is just allowing us to be able to pursue ends. But productivity is, in specifically in an animal sense, would rather be toward naturally given ones, whereas in humans, it is also toward creative ones that you can choose.
Okay, so is productivity a good or bad thing under the NCA?
It's just the nature of the agent.
Wait, what does that mean?
It's just how we are.
Okay, so the Sear evidence is the only thing that relates to BF directly, in that BF is somehow coercive.
I think this is just like mainly just like an internal link argument. It doesn't really have it like, it doesn't have a necessity in this.
Alright, why is the F bad under your framework?
Yeah, the F is bad underneath my framework is because you're causing forced labor, which strips us of our species being, which is our ability to be able to creatively labor.
Okay, so what does it mean to force someone to labor?
So, I mean, it's very literal. Like,
Okay, so what is the benefit to creative laboring?
we achieve morality. Oh wait, creatively laboring? Oh,
Yeah.
well, we would say like, to be able to creatively labor and allow people to creatively labor is something that's good because it allows us to be able to achieve this sort of like the more idealized version in which that we're talking about how we cannot infringe on other people's ends because that would justify them being able to restrict our own ends.
Okay. So contention level offense is supposedly intent-based. How does this relate to the NT saying the consequences of the plan is that you are have less creative labor?
Wait, repeat the question, sorry.
So it seems to me that the NC offense is based off of the consequence of the plan, i.e. the plan reduces the possibility for creative
No.
labor.
Because it's something that's internal, it's like internal to, well, the justification for why intent comes first is it's something that's internal to the will that we can control. This forced labor thing is something that happens in every single instance of the app. There's no, like, your app is literally just like compulsory in like this sort of labor, and that you say national service or military, I guess.
Right, but the consequence of the plan is that we force people, is the argument.
No.
Okay,
Like
well,
literally
what is
the structure of the action means that this intent is part of it in every instance.
Right, what is the intent that is bad under your framework?
You intend to force people to labor in a certain way.
Okay, just forcing people to labor.
Yeah.
45. You're just gonna be, just like the framework debate in general, and then the AC proper. So yours is just gonna be the framework debate in general, i.e. there will be cross applications from case to their arguments and their arguments on case. So like, you can look at both those right next to each other, I guess. I'm reading a couple new cards I flashed.
Did you email them?
Yeah, I'm about to do that.
Okay.
I haven't ready.
I still don't have it.
Oh yeah, I just, sorry, that was a poorly thought out question.
It's fine.
So I guess to clarify the roadmap better, I think this is so confusing. It'll be AC framework, NC framework, and then the AC substance.
Alright, so you're, we're good.
Yeah. AC framework,
He's doing a ping pong.
NC framework,
Yes.
AC
Put
substance.
them right next to each other, you'll be fine.
Uh,
This. You're like this.
Oh. I mean, yeah. Why act that way?
Let's get started.
Yeah.
Everyone ready? First on good, and their analysis is insufficient. The argument is actual specificity. Their framework explains individual ethical obligations, i.e. the labor of one specific person. However, this doesn't apply to the federal government writ large because the federal government doesn't enact any labor options, meaning that none of their NC necessarily applies to the actions the government takes place. They can see across that the argument is about the intentions. Therefore, therefore there's no link to the 1AC because they're not discussing the actor. And first, states only have averages and aggregates. They don't have the certainty of the choices that individuals do. So even if their intention arguments are necessarily true, we would have to aggregate the intentions of all almost 500 Congress people in order to determine the potential intents of a plan in the first place. And second, the intent can't be and second, the individual needs of every single person in the United States can't be unified. We have to necessarily aggregate every single person because the creative labor for one person could be potentially different for someone else. So in order to determine that, we have to aggregate the summation of the potentiality for creative labor, i.e. we have to enable them to have creative labor in the first place. That justifies people living. And I extend the Enoch argument. The argument is that there's no intent foresight distinction that warrants specific to individuals, i.e. an individual doctor is obligated to give a rare drug to a patient knowing that another patient will need it tomorrow, but states must consider all potential opportunity costs when making drug allocation decisions. Proves no intent foresight distinction for states. Their only response to this is infinite calculus. However, this argument makes absolutely no sense. One, it's empirically proven that states are able to make decisions. Second, util doesn't justify infinite calculus. Rather, it's a question of the best option and the next best option, i.e. an opportunity cost, meaning that there's no infinite calculus. We just look at the first two options, and they say we blame things on ignorance and the absence impact justified. However, ignorance doesn't apply to USFG. That's our arguments and analysis there. They say that collective vote for certain things. However, I've already done this analysis on good, and their last argument is that we can always abstract from pain and pleasure. However, we can also abstract from the constitutive creative labor from the NC. I can do actions, and I can take actions in which the labor of my I can take actions in which my labor doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter at all. Like going to Taco Bell versus going to McDonald's, meaning that their NC doesn't necessarily apply to the affirmative in the first place. NC proper. Personal identity reductionism is truth. The hemispheres of my brain transplanted to two different people, neither of them being perfect. 84. I can survive the half my brain is speculation that the brains of my two brothers, my brain is divided. Each half transplanted into the body of one of my brother's personal identity is not what matters. If mine was permanently divided into half, so I developed the information will become less false with the claim. The case involves one good person live in opposite ends of the okay mind, built to recognize each other. It cannot be true that what I believe to be strange is another part of myself. And reductionism justifies utility. Brzezinski 86. The reduction of futures from supposed utilitarian account utilitarianism treats person's existence. Utilitarianism reflects the nature of persons. Compares to the person is separate from the body, brain, and mental physical events. These by being too personal when we cease to believe that the persons are separate and existing entities, utility becomes more plausible than its competitors. The text of the answer, because that means that nobody really cares about any of their creative labor arguments, and there's no internal link just because I have to value my own labor doesn't mean that I have to value anyone else's. And second, tailoring an objection. I can tailor a maxim to become specific enough to be universal. For example, I can will a maxim relying in a specific circumstance only as when universalize that would not create a contradiction in willing, since not everyone would lie constantly. The maxim is to will the maxim of violating freedom in only the instance of the pain, and no a priori reasons. Humans are chained with cognitive biases. It's inseparable from evolution desires like avoiding pain, meaning it collapses util that takes out their binding arguments and constitute and it's impossible for us to achieve actual creative labor because job restrictions, the possibility of labor opportunities being that the entity is unapplicable, and yet it's key to creative laboring in the first place because people would just continue their creative laboring just inside of the world of the military. The evidence necessarily solves military readiness. That's our net evidence that the argument is that military readiness is low. Now the impact is global nuclear war from North Korea. North Korea is escalating now. We need to determine that. That's the Claire 2 evidence. The plan necessarily solves the Sir Eikenberry and Kennedy 13 evidence.
I have 2 minutes and 6 seconds of prep. Starting now. What was the argument after the tailing objection?
Let me check the doc. There's no a priori reason. Humans are tainted with cognitive biases, so it's inseparable from evolutionary desires.
Wait, say that again. My bad.
So there's no a priori reason why we look to like freedom first. Humans are tainted with cognitive biases. It's inseparable from evolutionary desires like avoiding pain. Means it collapses to util.
Are there any internal link arguments you make?
Wait, what do you mean?
Like, your framework is prerequisite to mine?
Yeah, I think the case arguments are pretty applicable there. And I think I made a justification for life on case as well.
What are the arguments on aggregating all Congress members and people in the U.S.?
So the first is that it's impossible to determine the intents of everyone unless we aggregate them. I.e., 50 people could vote for policy for one decision, 50 people could vote for it for a different decision. So then we have to look to aggregation in order to determine that. And the constituents argument is that it's impossible for states to make actions because everyone has different creative labor perspectives.
Okay. What is going to be NCAC? And there's going to be there's going to be an overview at the top of PAC. All right. Anyone not ready? Okay. First extent for how ethics must be binding, because if it isn't binding, then we can always opt out of it. It means that it can't ever be able to guide any of our actions. And next extent, word one, which is the species being is our ability to be able to creatively live or set and pursue the goals of whatever we want, what we want to do, and extend the argument in which intent comes first, because as long as this is as intent comes first, because they are only things internal to the will, and we can't really control things that are external to the will, like consequences. This isn't responded to. Now, next, you extend the argument in which that you can't turn the NC without being able to respond to the actual argument of the NC, because this is trying to use a goodwill. You can't will over a bad will with a goodwill, because that's aggregation, and also extends Sierra, in which this internal link into their arguments, because we need, in order to be able to achieve any sort of ends, we need to respect the other's ends in order to be able to achieve these sorts of things. That makes sense. Word 2, which is saying how we need to be able to how they're causing forced labor, which means that they're causing forced labor, which strips us of our ability to be able to creatively labor, but rather reduces us to mere animals in which that we can only pursue our naturally given needs. Now, onto their arguments. First, on Parthiv. Okay. First, we're not people who understand ourselves in episodes unless we have some conception of future. Then our present identity doesn't have a reason to carry in the future. Turn no bright line, no identity changes. Killing one person, killing an infinite number of experiences. This friend is useful and impossible because killing one. Why killing one versus two is bad because both are infinite. Now, on to the Kaminsky arguments. This doesn't imply, because freedom is something that you can just add up like numbers. It's not something that you can calculate in this sort of way. It's like adding up two circles and saying that these are round, but this doesn't make it more round if I add up two circles together. It's like it's a feature of the agent itself, and even if you don't buy that, there's still the infinite value of you human beings, means that it's incalculable in order to actually be able to calculate these things together and actually have any sort of calculus in that way. And you also say the Ripstein card, in which hindrance of a hindrance, but we co-opt any sort of concrete framework because we must be able to reason first to the prior question to be able to do this in the first place. And next on, we acknowledge that materialism is something that affects these, and you say we don't have to value other people's freedom, but we do have to value other people's freedom in order for them to value our own freedom, which is the Seer card. You can, as long as you can see this sort of argument, then that means that we should care about others' freedom, otherwise there's a contradiction in the will. And also on the tailoring objection, this assumes that we aren't all equal. We should be, if we are all equal, then we can never be able to universalize anything that just specifically makes us be able to do anything, which means that this violates the fundamental equality of human beings that Kantians care about. And also you say that cognitive biases mean that we always collapse to use, but we can always abstract away from desires, and this is a conceited argument in the last speech, means that you're always going to you're looking toward this argument as something that goes functionally conceited, and we're using to cross-apply it to this argument, which means that they can't make any sort of new response to this argument because we're going to abstract away from desires, such as the death in the family example that I give. And next, you want to look toward the fact that he says that we can't get creative labor in the status quo, but once still a violation is you're right after still a violation is still bad. It's true. There's an active mission distinction means that we're not responsible for these sorts of we're not responsible for it, even if it does happen in the status quo. Third, next on, and he says that people creatively labor and national service, even though they are constrained in this sort of way, but we can't not national service, which means there's still a restriction on our ability to be able to creatively labor in the first place. Now onto their framework. The biggest conception on this round is basically the fact that they concede the hijack, independent of whether they concede Seer, and they also concede the ability to recognize others if we're alienated, because if we're alienated, then we only can look to our naturally given needs, such as out of animals, which means that we can never be able to obligate us to be able to care about the well-being of other agents, which means that reason always comes first, and that means that I'm the only way to be actually be able to achieve the AF framework in the first AF framework in the first place, which means that even if you prove my framework is bad, I'm still internally in, and the only way to be able to actually achieve your framework in the first place is through my framework. And in the case of any sort of internal link, chicken or the egg arguments, first you're looking through the fact that this goes functionally conceded, means that this is there's a 100% strength in the link, which means that I'm always going to be winning on this argument, even if he tries to extend any sort of internal link argument. And second is the fact that you always presume freedom for the fact that freedom allows us to have our own individual search for ethics. Now, which allows us to be able to find ethics in the first place. Now on Gooden. Extend the fact that there's he makes the argument that empirically proven that states makes the decision, but it is sure they make the decision, but it's not always in a utilitarian sense, because they use things such as the Constitution. It means that you fail to be able to talk about why utilitarianism is able to actually prescribe action. You say we decide between the two options whenever we're doing utilitarianism, but whenever you're doing utilitarianism, you're definitely culpable for things that you don't even know about, such as if I just like turn a blind eye to like things that aren't happening, then utilitarianism would say that's like a bad thing. And next they're also saying that they're saying that labor in my action doesn't matter, which means labor in my action doesn't always have to matter, which means that it's not binding, but it's always matters because it's not that whether like being able to creatively labor is something that like is good, but it's rather just a form of the anti. We say the prescriptive part of the framework is rather how we should not be able to coerce other people. So yeah, sure, going to talk about isn't like something that's bad. That's not something that we care about under the act and mission distinction. It's not doesn't guide in that instance. Next on it doesn't care in that instance. Next on they say the intent of the act means that it doesn't just saying that it is not an intent of the act to wait what. No, okay, this is an intent of the act in order to be able to force people into labor, which means that this is always going to cause some sort of coercion, which means that it always links into the he says that this is an intent of the act, which means that it's a consequence of the act. Which means that it doesn't have a link into the act, but this is inherent to the intention of the act because it's something, the justification of why is internal, for why intent matters because it's internal to the will, which means there's only something that we can control, but if this is something that happens in 100% of the act instances, it means that's something we actually care about because it is something that we can control even if it is internal to the will. Next, on the arguments, they say that we aggregate all Congress members, but you could see the argument that collectives that do actually have intent because all of them are required because all that is required of a moral agent is that they set and pursue goals. Wait, what? Okay.
25 seconds.
So the order is going to be AC proper, it's just like the brief extensions, AC framing, NC framing. Everybody? Concession of AC often means that if I want a risk of, if there's a risk of me winning, utilitarian calculus means you automatically affirm you can extend the administration because the U.S. military is ready, has a readiness decline now. We have a shortage of personnel. You can extend that this personnel shortage leads to increased North Korean aggression that leads to global nuclear war that necessarily outweighs the negative. Also, you can extend the Eikenberry and Kennedy's 13 opportunity in case the draft necessarily resolves our readiness shortfalls. Let's go to the framework debate. This is an incredibly messy framework debate. Let me clarify this for you. There's two massive concessions coming out of the negatives versus the actor specificity claims. And second, they're not doing enough work on how the affirmative doesn't even bite the framework in the first place. One, go to the good analysis. They've conceded that states are only able to aggregate the individual wills of every single states are unable to aggregate. States are unable to use intentions because we have to aggregate the intentions of every single person. Meaning we have to just look to the overall net benefits of the policy. I.e., we have to look to what the end consequences of the policy are to determine the necessary intentions of all of the hundreds of Congress people that are necessarily passing the bill that takes out any potential NC odds. Because the argument is that in order to determine the intention versus we have to aggregate and calculate. Meaning you automatically affirm here. Second is that the NC framework paralyzes the ability for governments to engage in any potential action because they'd have to look into the creative labor of every single individual in the United States. That's functionally impossible. Therefore, we have to look to net truths. Like, it's impossible to do creative labor if you're literally dead. Therefore, case necessarily resolves the entirety of the impact analysis there on the Enoch evidence. There are, once again, no ones are specific to individuals. However, states must consider all opportunity costs, meaning that one answers their infinite regression argument. Second, it means that the states have no intent foresight distinction, and they just have to do what is net beneficial to any of their potential. What is the net beneficial consequence to policy action? Their last response is that we are always coercive. However, that's it. However, that's predicated on them winning their coercion argument. Also, they say that just because we can't make decisions doesn't. Let's just grab the NC framework. They extend anti-affirmative, however, they don't articulate any potential object, however, they don't articulate any reasons why the anti-affirmative is a coherent story, given that if you don't understand the anti-affirmative, you automatically gut check the utilitarian calculus coming out of the affirmative. The argument is that there's no a priori justification for individual freedoms. The argument is that animalistic tendencies are inherent in humans themselves. We think that pain is bad, and we think that pleasure is inherently true. This is true of every single action we necessarily take, meaning that you automatically gut check this argument on that internal warrant. Also, they're not doing enough work on the act is creative labor. We only conscript the people that we need for their specific job choices, meaning an Air Force engineer is going to the Air Force engineering department of the military. That necessarily resolves any potential offense coming off the NC, because the creative labor they do is literally the same thing in the world of the affirmative.
Anything?
Oh, great.